So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, and a warm welcome to everyone joining us today for this special webinar. Today is a particularly meaningful day as we celebrate the International Day of Women in Radiopharmaceutical Sciences. And this year's theme, Breaking Atoms and Breaking Barriers, and it's really a moment to highlight women breaking barriers and sharing their experiences and leading the way in shaping the future of radiopharmaceutical sciences. My name is Sarah Batou from the Belgian Nuclear Research Center, and I have the pleasure to co-moderate this session with Renata Mikolajczak from Polaton. And thank you, Renata, for co-chairing this third edition of this event. And
Thank you.
today we are particularly fortunate to welcome three outstanding speakers, Paola Erba, Ditebogo Gwogmo, and Rachel Elwardi, who will share with us their insights and experiences in this exciting and fast-moving field. This event is organized in the context of the EU PRISMAP project, which brings together top institutions across Europe to provide access to novel radionuclides. As many of you know, radiopharmaceuticals are transforming medicine from imaging to innovative cancer therapies. Yet, access to certain radionuclides has long been a challenge, and PRISMAP is here to change that by supporting researchers with the tools they need to innovate and bring new treatments to patients. For your information, this webinar will be recorded and posted on the PRISMAP website. So let's get started. And once again, thank you for joining us to these celebrations of science, equality, and innovation. Renata, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I would also like to welcome our panelists and our audience. The first presentation today will be given by Professor Erba is an associate professor in nuclear medicine and diagnostic imaging at the Medical Faculty of Bicocca University and also chair of the nuclear medicine department at Papa Giovanni Hospital in Bergamo. She is also affiliated in the Department of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging at the University Medical Center in Groningen, the Netherlands. Professor Erba served also as education chair of the European School of Multimodality Imaging and Therapy. And throughout her clinical and research career, she has promoted numerous interdisciplinary clinical studies, creating a network of young and talented investigators.
Thank you, Renata. I think you have a little problem with your line because we had, at least I had some discontinuity at the very end, but I guess you introduced me already. So thank you for the introduction. And
I'm sorry for that. It looks like we are losing connection, really. Sorry, I may switch off my camera for the time of your presentation to make sure that everything is correct. Thank you. So please go ahead with your talk, and I did my best to present you. So
I don't have doubt about that. Thank you, Renata. Being a friend, I'm sure you did perfectly. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity. And as you see from the title, this talk is not exactly related to the radiopharmaceutical in the sense that we are not dealing to them in the talk, but we are taking a different angle to why radiopharmaceutical might give a very important input in cancer care. And in particular, in these slides, I would like to share with you the work we did within the European Cancer Organization to understand the peculiarity of women living with cancer. In the next slide, you see that this initiative has been launched last year in April as part of the inequality networks. I had the pleasure to share the work stream with Isabella Rubio. She is a breast surgeon, and she is now the president-elect of the ECO. That time she was the president of the Surgical Oncologist Society. So the idea was to collect evidence to provide an overall picture of the life of women that are living with cancer, taking care of patients with cancer in terms of caregiver, but also in terms of professionals working in the field. In the next slide, you see the general, let's say, the history. So the publication that was presented last year during the ECO summit in Brussels, it's willing to address the gaps and challenges of all women that are, let's say, living in the cosmos of cancer. And as you see at the end of you will see at the end of this paper, you will have core policy recommendation. So the approach was we understand and we underline the problems, but we also try to give recommendation how to overcome those problems. Next slide is sharing just how big was the group that after the production of the document, review, contribute, and improve the manuscript. Really was in collegial work, and you see in universities, several medical associations, but also patient organizations were very active in providing input. Next slide, please. You see, this is the brief overview on how the document is structured. You have 4 main sessions. The first one was the importance of prevention, screening, and early detection policies. Second one is dealing with the women experience with cancer, so patients living with cancer. Second one of women as caregivers. You know that many times when we have a patient sick in the family, women are taking care of the patient, the family member, it's him or herself. And then the last session, session 4, is women in the workforce. In the next slide, you might see how the general structures look like. I don't have the time to go through all the statements, but for example, in the session 1, we identify important risk factors where we can make some difference. And one is, for example, alcohol consumption. For example, in breast cancer, recently, alcohol has been added to the list of risk factors. So as you see in the next slide, the point now is how to improve the situation. So the paper is calling for an end to irresponsible and harmful gendered marketing by tobacco and alcohol industries. And so this is one example of call for action. Next slide, we have another example. This is about the possibility of self-sampling when we are using cervical cancer screening strategies. And as a result, in the next slide, you see how the panelists call for expansion of free HPV vaccination to all individuals up to the age of 25 years, regardless of gender. Next slide, another example is about women with disabilities and inability to adhere to breast cancer and cervical cancer screening campaign. And so in the next one, again, you see the call for access to breast and gynecological cancer screening to be recognized as an undisputed woman right for all women. The next slide again. We see how when the session 2 is starting, we develop a series of infographics to inform the diversity of policy challenges that are associated with breast and gynecological cancer, but also with some other cancer. And in the next slide, you will see the recommendation of offering to all women through all Europe, at least, access to genetic testing and counseling and genomic tumor testing to guide the use of systemic therapy in order to personalize treatment. Next one, please. Here you see now, always in the section of women experience cancer, we also look a little broader. So not only during the disease, but also patients surviving after breast cancer or gynecological cancer. So the first call for action in this session, in the next slide, you will see, is the call for all women diagnosed with cancer to be counseled on fertility preservation, particularly when this is happening in young women of childbirth potential. Next slide, please. We also call for a state pension scheme and social security in all countries to better reflect the individual role of informal care provided to cancer and other patients, and for continuous progression of employees' social rights. And this is, of course, related to the third session, when women are now no longer a patient, but they are a caregivers. Next slide. So, and then the last point, which is really very close to my heart, being myself a woman working in the medicine. So you know that women in workforce, health workforce, earn approximately 20% less than men. And we have a 12.7 gender wage gap in Europe. Next slide. So in this case, we call for National Health Ministry, professional society, and university to establish targets and strategy to achieve gender equality within health systems, including in respect to leadership positions. You might say this is very difficult, but for example, recently Spain was able, by introducing this special policy, to significantly reducing this gap to 3%. So that is showing you that it's possible when proper policy are putting in place. Next slide, please. Again, another problem when we are dealing with ladies working in generally, but particularly in the healthcare system, it's the affection of their career progression while they are pregnant. So in the next slide, again, you will see a call for to avoid or reduce maternity discrimination within the health system. And in the next slide, again, you see, if you want to have some more info, look through the report. This is the QR code that you can look into to scan and download the full paper. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is the second phase of this initiative. So currently we we wrote these small manifestos with the 5 main women cancer rights, and this is the manifesto that we would like to use to promote all those activities in the upcoming EU gender equality strategy, which is currently ongoing. I think I can finish here. I don't want to run out of time for the respect of the other speakers. And if you have some more question and information, we can take it later in the discussion. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Paola, for this excellent overview. We appreciate your talk. However, for the sake of the flow of this webinar, we decided to keep the time for questions after all the presentations. So please stay with us and we invite you to the discussion afterwards. Now I give floor to Sarah.
Thank you, Paola, and thank you, Renata. Our next speaker is Mrs. Ditebogo Cuomo, who is CEO of the National Nuclear Regulator of South Africa and also the current chairperson of the South African Council for the Non-Proliferation of Weapons of Mass Destruction. But she's also a co-chair of the Nuclear Regulators for Gender Equity and will speak today from this perspective. With extensive experience in nuclear policy and regulation, Mrs. Cuomo has held senior roles at the National Nuclear Regulator and the Department of Energy, and has contributed to international bodies including the EAEA and the Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation. She holds an MSc, a master from the University of Witwatersrand, a Master of Law in Energy Law and Policy from the University of Dundee, and a postgraduate diploma in coaching. Mrs. Cuomo is a passionate advocate for mentoring, coaching, and continuous learning. Please, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah, for that introduction. It is a pleasure for me to join you this afternoon in the seminar, and thank you for the invitation. So today I'm going to indeed talk about the nuclear regulators for gender equity. And so this body of regulators was actually formed in September of 2020. And initially, it had a tongue twister of a name. We were called the International Gender Champions Impact Group on Gender Equality in Nuclear Regulatory Agencies. You can imagine, I mean, after 4 years of trying to say this, in 2024, we decided that we needed to find a simpler, straightforward way to identify the group. And so we changed it to the Nuclear Regulators for Gender Equity. It's a little bit simpler. So when it was initially launched, there were 9 nuclear safety regulatory bodies, as well as 2 international organizations on board. That was the International Atomic Energy Agency, as well as the OECD's Nuclear Energy Agency. And as I say, so last year, middle of the year, that's when we decided to change the name to NRGE. So if we can go to the next slide. The current membership of this group is, I think at last count, we are about 27 member regulators. So it is not individuals that join, but it is actually the organizations that regulate nuclear safety and radiation safety in the different countries. We still have the IAEA, of course, and the Nuclear Energy Agency. At this point, we do have 3 co-chairs. It's myself, Mrs. Annemiek van Bolhuis from the Netherlands, as well as the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Mr. Rafael Grossi. Next slide, please. So you might be asking yourself, why this body of regulators? In 2020, when the then International Gender Champions Impact Group was formed, there was, this acknowledgement that women are a minority in the nuclear industry in general, as well as in the nuclear safety regulatory bodies. And so there was this, an agreement to pursue a goal of increasing the number of women in the workforce, in the current workforce, as well as the pipeline that supports our sector. And the benefits of this, is really to engage all the available talent, where you should get the benefits of having a diverse workforce. we can try and address labor force dynamics. We should be able to get increased innovation, resilience of the workforce, as well as competitiveness of the different organizations in this space. And there was also recognition that there are other industries that have made great strides in issues of gender equality and gender equity. And so with that, they've created a community of heads of regulatory bodies that are committed to addressing issues of gender imbalances in our different organizations. So the NRGE has got a charter as well as a terms of reference that organizations, regulatory bodies that want to join us need to sign up to. We can go on to the next slide. And really here, I was just indicating the kind of benefits and the reasons why it is necessary to pursue gender equity as a goal. We stand to benefit more from that than actually not consciously pursuing gender equity as a goal. As I said earlier, you get to an equitable workforce, a representative workforce, you enhance innovation, your decision making benefits from involvement of everyone in the organization, and of course with the way we are formed, because usually there is really only one nuclear safety regulator in each country. So we are able to benefit from the nature of the global cooperation that we find ourselves in. We address skills shortages, and of course there is improvement in organizational performance, as well as the culture of the organization. And with that, we hope that we will inspire, future generations to join the nuclear field, to join organizations that operate in the radiopharmaceutical space. Next slide, please. So our methods of working, really, it is that we seek to develop and implement policies and initiatives that attract and retain women. So here, think of women-friendly working environments. We have to have a discussion of what does that look like. We share vision and we leverage experiences of other organizations to enhance our organizational efforts, our national efforts, as well as in the regions and at a global level. So we work to remove barriers that prevent women participation in our organizations. We have to promote participation of women in our organizations, as well as support the STEM initiatives that actually build the pipeline for the sectors that we work in. So just as an example on the next slide, the current effort that we are engaged in is that we have a joint nuclear regulators for gender equity and the Nuclear Energy Agency. We have a joint initiative where we have collected data from the different nuclear regulators that are participating, and we do have a summary findings that will be published later on this year, and these will be on gender balance specifically in the participating regulatory bodies. So if we don't measure things, we will not be able to change, or we will not even know where we stand. So this particular project was meant to give us in-your-face data of where we stand as nuclear regulators on the issues of gender balance in our organizations. So as I say, the overview of these trends will be published later this year. Keep an eye out on the announcements that come out of the OECD NEA. Next slide. I think that would be my last slide. This is just to say, if you are a woman in the nuclear sector, in radiation safety or in radiopharmaceutical, I urge you to actively participate and take advantage of the initiatives that are implemented in your different organizations to support women. And if you want to know more about some of the work that we are doing, there is a QR code on this page. We also have some links that will show you the work of the women in nuclear, this joint project that I have just spoken about, and the work that was done a few years ago by the OECD on the high level on improving gender balance in the nuclear sector. And that was focused on the sector in general. But this next report that we will come out with focuses on the nuclear safety regulators, actually. I think I'm going to pause there, and I look forward to the discussions. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Cuomo. And it was very interesting. And I think we will have also a very rich discussion afterwards on this initiative, a particularly important initiative. For the sake of time, I would like to give the floor to Renata to introduce our third speaker of today.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And it's my honor to introduce Professor Rachel Elordi, who is head of the Nuclear Science and Innovation for Energy and Health unit at the Joint Research Center in Karlsruhe, Germany, the European Commission institution. She is also a radiation protection officer and holds a PhD in chemistry on materials for science application. Rachel leads a dedicated team engaged in a wide range of activities which support nuclear fuel safety and coordinates the open access program to nuclear research infrastructure at JRC Karlsruhe. Also, she is in charge of the nuclear medical applications with the activity of targeted alpha therapy. Through collaborative research involving actinium-225-based radiopharmaceuticals, her team supports hospitals and research centers in their crucial work. And as many of you know, this collaboration has contributed significantly to the progression of targeted alpha therapy research worldwide. So, Rachel, the floor is yours. We are looking forward to JRC perspective.
Thank you, Renata, for an introduction, and thank you for the invitation to this event, which I think is really relevant for the topic and for the place of women also. So, yeah, I will. I'm a bit in a position, I will say, between my two panelists as member, let's say, of GRC, which is part of the European Commission for doing science and research on the topic, and also for, let's say, having a foot on the regulation or directives links to improvement of the equality gender balance in Europe. So I will try a bit to show these two aspects of the European Commission. So first, just to tell you that indeed we are part of the European Commission, and our role is to support the EU policies with research and independent evidence throughout the whole policy cycle, which means from the development to the implementation of a policy. And as the honest broker, we are, let's say, making sense of the science to support the policy making. So the GRC has 6 sites. So the headquarters is in Brussels, but we do have a research center on different sites from Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, so where I'm located, Italy, and Sevilla in Spain. And we are doing actually research going from non-nuclear to nuclear research. So just go straight away on the topic of cancer, where the GRC is actually managing flagship action. So we have been setting a knowledge center on cancer not so long ago during COVID time, actually meant to foster the scientific and technical coordination of EU activities on cancer. And there are different pillars going from the EU cancer information system, where we are providing actually data for the statistics to help our policymakers, but also we are in charge of developing EU guidelines with expert and quality assurance scheme. Or we have also having an EU cancer inequalities registry, which are providing data to help again our policy makers to see what is the situation, let's say in the member states. So on the medical radionuclide here at GRC and from the nuclear part, and this is something which is related, let's say, to the unit and the units also with who I'm working. We are working on this topic around three pillars. One, research and development on alpha emitters. Second, working on novel production methods to improve the supply of radionuclide. A third pillar will be the training for end users, and last, a policy support, which is really part of our daily work. So here, just to show you that we have important constitution, let's say, from laboratory, from experimental work, and we are working, let's say, on the development of method for production of actinium-225 to secure the supply. Actually, we have been working here at GRC Karlsruhe since the 90s already. We work on standardized protocols for the synthesis and quality control of the radiopharmaceuticals with this radioisotope. We are working also in close collaboration with partners on preclinical studies, in vitro and in vivo. And also we are working on clinical testing of novel radiopharmaceuticals. So in 2013, for instance, we have been developing the actinium-225 PSMA 617 together with Hospital University of Heidelberg to treat the prostate cancer. But we are also working on other types of cancer. So another important aspect also of our work is the capacity building. So with hands-on training on these radioisotope-based radiopharmaceuticals, together with IEA, but also with member states. We are having also collaboration with, let's say, beyond the European Union, and for instance, strong collaboration with South Africa, with who, let's say, we are doing a clinical phase study together with Novartis. And another part is the International Symposium on Targeted Alpha Therapy, which has been initiated by GRC in beginning of 2000. And so the next one is in next year in Rio, Brazil. And we had the last one 2 years ago in South Africa for the first time, let's say, on the continent of South Africa. So here it's just examples of EU initiatives on the topics. I will not go in detail, but just to tell you that all these initiatives are within, let's say, Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, and where we have RV for the European Radioisotope Valley Initiative to support and to, let's say, the supply of radioisotope in Europe. There is also a different European project which are linked to different aspects on the topic. And here, example, well, the Secure project working not only but on the actinium, but also on lead 212. And this is led by Polatom, I think with you, Renata. But we have also other European projects like Pianoforte linked to the radiation protection research, or linked to the, let's say, the skills and competence with NN2+ project. And this event, like today, is linked to the European project PRISMAP. So now I'm going on this slides. Actually, I provide an overview on the EU commitment to promoting gender equality, highlighting key initiatives and policies. So on March this year, 2025, there have been, so the European Commission have been publishing a roadmap for women's rights to reaffirm the EU commitment to gender equality, speed up the progress in this area, and counteract political movement that contest the EU gender equality policies. So a new commissioner for equality, Ajaj Labib, described the upcoming roadmap as a compass for future EU action in the area, both inside and outside the Union. So the roadmaps actually outlines the challenges and benefits of gender equality today, emphasizing the political and economic importance. It expressed the Commission commitment to women's rights and invites other EU institutions to adhere to it. It emphasized also the importance of involving the member states, since in some areas the area has only limited competencies to support and coordinate the action of member states. So another point is the launching of several initiatives to promote the gender equity, and including the Gender Equality Strategy 2020-2025, which aim to address the persistent gender pay gap, improve work-life balance, and combat gender-based violence. So the strategy set out to promote gender equality in all areas of life, including employment, education, healthcare, and decision-making. And to maybe answer to some of the slides from Paola, a first deliverable of the strategy in 2025 was the Pay Transparency Directive adopted in May 2023. And the new rules actually help to ensure equal pay for equal work or work of equal value, so that it becomes finally a reality on the ground since the time we are talking actually about it. Another example is also the directive of gender balance in corporate boards, where we, let's say, asked having also a gender equality for a decision making in certain some corporate, let's say, groups, in private as in public. So there is also the areas initiatives such as Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe, which includes a specific focus on gender equality in research and innovation. And then, so there is the European Institute for Gender Equality, which has been developed not so long ago, and which provide actually expertise and support the EU institution and member states on gender equality issues. So it provides also data collection, research, and policy development. Two other examples is other institutions like the European Parliament, which has a standing committee on women's rights and gender equality called FAME, helping also men to help also to improve the situation there. And the last point, where I think which was already presented by Paola, I will skip it. I just wanted here to give you some example and to show you how important are the data to demonstrate what we observe most of the time and to support our policymakers. For instance, example about employment status of parent by gender. What we see is that women are less employed, let's say 70% against 84% for men. Women are twice more working let's say working part-time, and they stay at home, so due to the parenting, let's say, at about 10 times more than men. Another example is the share of parents spending at least 5 hours a day on childcare, and we speak here for children below 12 years. You see that a bit more than half of a woman are taking this time, while by men we are falling, let's say, to one quarter. Another example to show you also the heterogeneity among the member states is the part-time employment among those, let's say, age 20, 64 years by country and sex. And you see that women are much more working part-time than men by some, let's say, countries like Netherlands, Austria. The fact here is women are not just taking care of the children, but also with the time they are also taking care of the parents, because when unfortunately they cannot be independent anymore, the women are also tendency to take the time to take care of the parents, not only for the children. And actually all this data, there are here just an example, but there are many data that we are providing And here are some examples of EU directives which have been put in place. One of them is the directive on work-life balance for parents and carers. And you see that the date of the proposal was 2017, but the date of incorporation into national law was 2022. So these are things which are also taking time. Second one is about gender balance among directors of listed companies. And here also it started in 2012 date for the proposal, and it's only 2024 where this been incorporated in national law. So you have here a link where you can get much more from this information. But just to tell you again that we need all this data to demonstrate indeed our policymakers that there is a need to act and to let's say influence a bit the member states in that sense. So the last slide is actually I wanted just to give two important points to me, is that we are in a world where women's rights are once again being challenged from all quarters in all, but Europe remains really the place where women live best. But still, even in Europe, we see that there is still a lot to do. And also the evidence shows that closing the gender gap is not just a matter of fairness. I mean, this is not to be kind or to be nice. It's really a key driver of economic growth, innovation, stability, and resilience. So this is for all this reason why we still need to do additional work on the topic. With this, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rachel. An excellent talk, and thank you for raising all these points in your last slides, because I think this is a very good place where we can start the discussion. So, Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you. First, let me thank the three speakers for their excellent presentation. And together with Renata, we have prepared some questions that we would like to address to each of the speakers before we open the floor to the audience for their questions. So our first question will go to Paola Erba. Paola, considering the global health challenges such as cancer, what role do you see radiopharmaceutical sciences playing in the next 5 to 10 years, and how can women shape that future?
Thank you, Sarah. Also, congratulations to the other speakers. Very interesting data and session. And it's nice to see that from different angles, we are all getting to the same numbers, figures, and action to be followed. So to me, the real point is understanding the problems as we are doing, and at that point, set of strategies. And one of the strategy in general is that if we have a few resources, we have the moral obligation to use them properly. And through personalized medicine, which is for us one of the flag of the use of radiopharmaceutical, we can really predict when a certain treatment, particularly when it comes to the very expensive and long-term treatment, they have most option to be effective, and not to waste resources and options for women, but for patients in general, and then being able to switch to other treatment. As a doctor, I mean, for me, is the say commitment is providing evidence that this approach is really the way to go. And so provided clinical evidence that is not just a concept, but it really translates in a better patient care. And that is really through all the journey of those patients. It's not, again, when we design the document of women and cancer, was not against men or against any other groups or minority children or whatever. It's just because every group has such peculiarity that we, the better we know, the better we can really approach the problem with the group-specific strategy, and which is at the beginning gender, but it's not only gender, it's many other considerations that we need to take holistically in. And I'm very happy to see many ladies today online. So that's very, it's an encouraging number, even because if you think our medical faculty, this moment is mainly pink, despite we lose a lot of those talented through all the way. And that is what we really need to avoid.
Thank you very much, Paola. Specifically in the field of radiopharmaceutical sciences and in the treatment to cancer, do you see, how do you see the next few years in terms of research, exciting research, and exciting questions still to be resolved?
Oh, there is not better way to be a nuclear medicine physician or a radiopharmaceutical scientist this moment. Every day we are opening a trial. So that means that all the work that we have done in the lab in the past years is now translating into clinical trial. And of course, none of all the phase one will end up in a successful product. But we saw really once was only FDG, and then you were lucky if you had it. Now it's, oh, okay, how can I really shape the agenda of the PET scan in a way to accommodate all the needs? So in this case, I'm very optimistic because the future is really very exciting. The problem, if I might be also a little challenging in this respect, is that we are really facing workforce, not crisis, but we are really in shortage of workforce to all the different professional figures. And so that is where really we need, in generally, health professionals. Not only nuclear medicine or radiopharmaceutical science. So the competition is really hard, but that is where we really need to be creative in a way that the youngers understand and not by chance happen to encounter our discipline. That is where we really need to put a lot of effort.
Thank you, Paola. Renata, I'll give you the
Thank
floor.
you. Yes, and to continue this interesting discussion, I would have a question to Mrs. Kumogo. Gomo, sorry, Gomo. How do you think the organizations and the institution better support women's retention and progression in the field? Because you do a lot as an organization, but we believe there's still more that could be done and could be advised. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for that question. And just to pick up on a point that Paulo makes about an exciting sector to work in. She says that looking at you're moving from the lab and into the field, there's a lot of trials happening, and so you have something that if you were to have women come into your sector, there's something that they're working towards. If you just take the nuclear power generation space, the question can be asked that what has been happening in the last, say, 10 years that is supposed to attract and retain women in the sector? So to your point, there needs to be something that actually the people are coming into the sector for. And I fear that the lack of new builds that has happened in the last couple of decades has probably also led to less interest in the work in this area. But be that as it may, I think for the organizations that exist today, both regulators and operators, of course, and the research organizations, I think we all need to have, inclusive organizational culture and leadership commitment to that culture. I think there's a famous saying that says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if the culture is bad, it actually doesn't matter, how many strategies you're going to put in place. We need to deal with the culture first. So you need a culture that, will drive whether women will stay and thrive, or in fact, they will just give up and say, you know what, I'm better off looking after my children. I'm better off looking after my family. And that will lead us back to the statistics that Rachel was just sharing earlier. So we need leadership that sets clear gender equity goals. And then there needs to be accountability for those goals. That how do we hold you accountable for the goals that you have set when you do not meet them? If you take, for example, in my country, South Africa, some of these are actually legislated. There's legislation related to employment equity goals. We have to put them in place, and we have to explain when these targets are not being met. And they are, there are penalties for not meeting these targets. So that's where when you don't have a culture change, you have to force it through those other mechanisms such as those. So I think we also need to have, zero tolerance for discrimination and harassment in the workplace. That absolutely needs to be clear. It is the policy of the organizations. In some countries, like my country, this is legislated. You cannot have discrimination based on gender and many other things. We also have to encourage inclusive leadership training. We need to make it clear that we are developing the future leaders for our different organizations. So that's just on the question of culture. The other thing I think that links up with some of the initiatives that we had from the European Commission, the whole issue of flexible work policies. I do believe that women need flexible work policies, but with that, there should still be pay equity. We still have to have that equal pay for work of equal value, even if as a woman I am doing it on a flexible arrangement. So there needs to be proper work-life integration. I will not put it as balanced because I don't believe it is balanced, but that it is that we are integrating work and life because we recognize that there are certain responsibilities that are rather unfortunately at this point, heavily placed on women in the family. And the reason why we need these flexible work policy is because many women leave mid-career due to caregiving, either giving birth or, as you mentioned earlier, that we look after parents. So the flexibility, I think, will help retain talent in our workspaces. Going back on the issue of pay equity, it is important that we have transparent performance matrices where men and women will know, how is performance rewarded here? It shouldn't be guesswork. The pay gaps and the opaque promotion criteria, I do think that they really drive attrition and disengagement of women in the workplace. So we have to conduct those pay gap audits, publish these results so that yet again, the data is in our face and we know what is the problem that we are faced with so that we can then be honest in the development of the strategies to then deal with the issues that arise. I think just those 3 points. I mean, I think there are others around transparent career pathways, but I think I'm going to pause there so that maybe we have a minute or two for questions from the audience. Thank you, Renata. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your experiences. I think, in this webinar, we try to push the things a little, at least to contribute, but we can see that it's still a lot of to do at various levels. Yeah, Sarah, please.
Yes, we would like to also ask a question to Rachel before we get to the questions from the audience. And Rachel, we would like to address the question to the scientist that you are, the distinguished and renowned scientist that you are. From your perspective, how can the scientific community ensure that women's contributions in research and innovation are recognized and valued equally?
Okay, now thank you, Sarah, for the question. I think here it's really a matter of let's say fairness. in the sense that, well, I was speaking about the program Horizon, 2020 and Horizon Europe, when there are proposals which are being done, that we are really looking at who is on the list, and if to raise the point that, well, is there not women, young students, or who can also do the work or contribute, let's say, to the proposal. There is this aspect, let's say, of making the proposals, making the publications, being in the co-authorship and so on, to know exactly who is doing what, and here be aware that, well, if sometimes we don't see many women, because indeed we don't have women on the place who contribute to the work, but when there are cases, I mean, we should be really empowering this woman. But there was something I wanted to say, is indeed to encourage, to empower more women on this topic, or in general in science. You have a process what we call top down and bottom up. Top down for having, let's say, some directives in my language, but to have some guidelines, and this is very important here to raise this point. And the bottom up is simply that we should encourage women at early stage, and going back to school and showing to school at a young age that any job can be done by men and women, and this is really to raise awareness, and also to say that there are possibility that women don't give up, let's say, or stop the career for taking care of children, and so it's really raising the awareness from the top and from the bottom, that in the end, we get more women, let's say, on stage.
Thank you very much, Rachel. I pass it to Renata now for sharing the questions from the audience.
So we don't get questions from the audience, but maybe one brief question to all our panelists. And this is a more personal question, I would say. Could you share with us what initially drew you to radiopharmaceutical or nuclear sciences, and what motivated you to stay in the field? So maybe Mr. Gomo first. You are muted, please.
Oh, thank you. I'll be very quick. I got attracted into the nuclear sector by reading an article in a newspaper, and it was explaining how the Nuclear Energy Corporation of South Africa here in Pelindaba were irradiating meat, which was being used by, adventurers that were going to climb Mount Everest as their source of food supply, because it will last so long. I read that article, I was like, no way. And yeah, that's how I caught the bug.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's inspiring, I would say. Yeah. So maybe Paola, could you share your experiences? How did you happen to join the field? Yeah.
Honestly, it was by chance because in the department they were searching for a student at that time able to use an Excel, to put an Excel file on, because they had a research on pediatric scan nephogram, and they did not know yet how to use Excel, and I was pretty good, and so that was my encounter with the discipline. But then, you know what made the difference? It was the only department where the chair that time was a lady, and the three of the senior staff, they were ladies. And so I say, oh wow, how comes that is pretty unique back 25 years ago. And so then I started going back, and they really took me as very rare to see a student there. So they make me growing, and then they send me out because they say, okay, now go do your research, do whatever you have to. But then I really like it, and then I went back, and then I never moved from there.
Thank you. Yes, please stay because you really achieved a lot. So don't change the field.
No,
Yes.
no way.
Yes, and Rachel, what's your experience, please?
So actually, I have a chemist as a educational background, and I was preparing samples, different type of samples, different method, and when I came in the nuclear is because from my background in preparation of samples, but and for surface science. And the way I fall in the radiopharmaceuticals world, beside, let's say, the head of unit position, is that I was, before to be in the management position, I was preparing, let's say, or busy in project where we are preparing targets for the production of radioisotope. So, for ISOLT facility. And it was in a program called Open Access that we have here at GRC, where we had researchers from Italy, from ENFN, who were wanted to have targets on uranium carbide. And since then I'm dealing, and my unit, I'm pushing also to work further on the production of target. So we are working with CERN, we are working also with SCK, CEN, and it is in the way of let's say field of preparing radioisotope actinium-225, but not only, and to have it more, let's say, on the market. So this is how I fold, let's say, radiopharmaceuticals came to me, I would say, almost.
Thank you so much. In the meantime, we have got a question on chat. So if you could open a chat and maybe Paola, I think this would be a question for you. Could you address this?
Yeah, thank you, Mara, for the question. You are right. Also, in the while researching for the document, you really see that age of patient is getting younger and younger, and this is really require a proper communication to the new risk group, which are not speaking the same language we are used to, and so you really need to better target your message. And that's also why you might think that it's not so crucial focusing on the risk or the prevention of behavior that are putting the young generation at risk, and then they are not really aware yet that that is a risk. So that's the reason why we are really trying to put a lot of effort in the way those messages are also advertised. So cigarettes is now easy because everybody realizes, but there are also other hidden risk factors that we are not yet able to underline their role, that we really need to promote awareness in a way that whenever you are taking a risk, because nothing in life is risk free, you are aware of what's the real risk and the benefit and the disadvantage of this behavior. And lastly, I would also like to underline that being the patient younger, we really also need to think to their well-being after survival. So through all their life, including survival after cancer. And the fertility preservation is again one example. You might think, okay, this patient is risking life, so why are you thinking about this right that is not crucial, first life? Yes, but after the disease, this patient need to, this person is no longer a patient, need to be back to the all fully right of the normal life, which is also include the fertility and the right to be mother, to have a family, to have all the same treatment as any other person. So thank you for the question. It's really very relevant.
Thank you very much for the answer. We have more questions for the panelists, but this webinar was planned just for 1 hour and we are a bit over time. So together with Sarah, we would like to thank our panelists for their great presentations and great contribution to the discussion. Wonderful. I would like to thank our audience. Sarah, would you like to say a word?
Yes, I thank you. Thank you very much to the speakers. Thank you, Renata. And we hope that you all enjoyed, also the audience, the webinar, and for this special International Day for Radiopharmaceutical Sciences, and for contributing to this meaningful exchange. And we wish you an excellent rest of the day. But maybe, Renata, you can finish
Yeah.
by advertising a little bit the next meeting.
A little of advertising because I hope it's not the last time we are meeting in this composition of speakers. So in November we will host in Poland the final meeting of PRISMAP. It would be great to meet you there. And I encourage you to consider this option, especially we will have on the 19th of November, we will have a public event, which is always a good place to promote whatever has been achieved within PRISMAP, but not only, so also a good platform to continue our discussion. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon and hope to see you on some other occasion. Bye.
Thank you.
Very much. Bye bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.